Your sustained silence isn't just hurting your avoidant ex, it's systematically dismantling their entire psychological framework and forcing them into a complete mental reorganization that will fundamentally change how they understand themselves and relationships. This prolonged absence of your voice, your energy, and your emotional reactions is creating a psychological domino effect that will transform them in ways they never expected and can't control. Their ego will collapse completely. Your prolonged silence is slowly but systematically destroying their inflated sense of self-importance and emotional superiority. Without your reactions to feed their ego, without your pursuit to validate their desirability, and without your attention to confirm their specialness, their entire self-concept is crumbling like a house built on sand. This ego collapse isn't temporary humbling, it's permanent psychological restructuring, where they're forced to confront that they're not as irresistible, mysterious, or emotionally sophisticated as they believed. Your silence is proof that someone can actually walk away from them and stay away, which shatters their assumption that they're irreplaceable. The collapse will force them to rebuild their sense of self from the ground up, but this time, based on authentic self-worth rather than superiority over people who pursue them. Your silence is teaching them that their value can't depend on others needing them more than they need others. They'll become obsessed with understanding you. Your prolonged silence will trigger an obsessive need to decode, analyze, and understand every aspect of your personality, psychology, and decision-making process. They'll spend countless hours trying to figure out how your mind works, why you're capable of such sustained distance, and what makes you different from everyone else they've encountered. This obsession will include studying your social media for clues about your emotional state, analyzing past conversations for insights into your thought patterns, and creating elaborate theories about your motivations and feelings. They'll become amateur psychologists trying to crack the code of your behavior. The irony is that your silence will make you more fascinating and psychologically compelling to them than your presence ever was. They'll be drawn to the mystery you've created through your absence in ways they never were when you were available and transparent with them. Their attachment system will completely reorganize. Your prolonged silence will force their avoidant attachment system into crisis mode, causing a fundamental rewiring of how they approach relationships and emotional connections. The sustained absence of someone who mattered to them will trigger attachment responses they've never experienced before. This reorganization will include developing genuine appreciation for emotional availability, understanding the value of consistent communication, and recognizing that their patterns don't create the outcomes they actually want. Your silence is teaching them through painful experience what healthy attachment actually requires. They'll be forced to confront that their avoidance strategies don't work with people who have genuine self-worth and healthy boundaries. Your sustained distance is proving that emotional games only work on people willing to play them, and you've left the game entirely. They'll develop genuine empathy. Your prolonged silence will force them to experience what it feels like to want someone who doesn't respond, to miss someone who seems indifferent, and to feel powerless in a dynamic they can't control. This experience will develop empathy they've never had for people they've treated similarly. This empathy development will include understanding how their hot-cold behavior felt to you, recognizing how their withdrawal created pain and confusion, and comprehending how their emotional unavailability damaged your sense of security and worth. They'll finally understand the receiving end of their own patterns. The prolonged silence will teach them about emotional cause and effect in ways they never learned while they were protected from consequences by your continued presence and pursuit. They're experiencing delayed karma that's educating them about the impact of their choices. Their defense mechanisms will break down. Your sustained silence will systematically dismantle every psychological defense mechanism they've relied on to avoid vulnerability and authentic emotion. Without your reactions to deflect from, your emotions to manage, and your pursuit to feel superior to, their defensive structures will collapse from lack of reinforcement. This breakdown will force them to sit with raw, unprocessed emotions they've been avoiding through their defensive patterns. They'll have to face their fear, pain, loneliness, and neediness without the distraction of managing your emotional responses or maintaining relationship drama. The silence will strip away their ability to project their issues onto you, blame relationship problems on your neediness, or avoid self-examination through focusing on your behavior. They'll be forced to turn inward and examine their own patterns without external distractions. They'll recognize their patterns as self-sabotage. Your prolonged silence will provide them with enough distance and perspective to see their avoidant patterns clearly for the first time. Without the immediacy of relationship dynamics clouding their judgment, they'll be able to analyze their behavior objectively and recognize it as self-destructive rather than self-protective. This recognition will include understanding that their emotional withdrawal doesn't keep them safe, it keeps them isolated. Their mixed signals don't create desirable mystery, they create confusion and frustration. Their independence doesn't make them strong, it makes them incapable of intimate connection. They'll begin to see that every strategy they've used to protect themselves has actually prevented them from getting what they want most. Your silence is allowing them the mental space to connect their actions to their outcomes in ways they couldn't while caught up in relationship dynamics. They'll face their core wounds. Without your emotional energy to distract them, without relationship dynamics to focus on, and without your reactions to manage. Your prolonged silence will force them to confront the core wounds that created their avoidant patterns in the first place. They'll have to face their deepest fears about love, abandonment, and worthiness. This confrontation with core wounds will be painful but necessary for any genuine healing or growth. They'll have to examine their childhood experiences, early relationship patterns, and the beliefs they formed about love being dangerous or temporary. Your silence creates the psychological space necessary for this deep work because it removes all distractions and forces them to sit with their authentic feelings rather than managing external relationship dynamics. They'll understand what they lost. The prolonged silence will gradually reveal the full scope of what your presence provided in their life: emotional regulation, validation, understanding, patience, and unconditional acceptance. Only through your complete absence will they comprehend how much they depended on you, while pretending to be independent. Your prolonged silence will cause a complete psychological transformation that teaches them everything they refused to learn while they had access to your love. But this education comes through the painful process of losing what they needed most, while taking it for granted.